and have a chat. All right. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Kim Vogie, and I am coming to you from Corona, California, so not too far away from some of you. And I hope that you're having a wonderful time at the conference. Our topic today is Got UDL, and all students are created equitable. So how are we going to remove barriers and have what we need for our students in a variety of different ways? And first of all, let me say, especially since this is a virtual conference, if you get in here and these slides and this information isn't meeting your needs, you will not hurt my feelings if you need to leave, if you feel that something is going to suit your needs better. So I always tell people walk with your feet, and now it's click with your Zoom, I guess, if this isn't meeting your needs. So I hope to meet your needs. And a little bit about myself. I'll be entering my 28th year teaching this fall. And as of right now, I'll be teaching at our district's virtual school that I helped establish last summer. So this summer I actually got a break. Last summer I was building a virtual school. And I am just thrilled to be here and share what I've learned about UDL with you. This year was a huge year for me in my learning and growth in UDL. I've known about it for quite a while, but putting it into practice to meet the needs of, at one point, 66 sixth graders and me. So our school went from 0 students in about this time last year to 450 elementary students by the time we started. So I was the only teacher until a couple weeks into the school year. Then we had 13 teachers. So a lot of UDL was going on, and I had quite a few students with IEPs and 504s, and I never got any never got any like feedback from parents of like, what are you doing to meet my kids' needs? They felt that their child's needs were met. So that's our goal. So imagine that you are at a dinner party or you own the catering company, and you have to create a fabulous dinner that will make the party a huge success. But here's some of the parameters. You've got some people who are lactose intolerant, nut allergies, people on a gluten-free diet, a vegetarian, and just on a regular diet. So what are you going to do to meet those needs of those people attending your party? You've got to figure out what to serve, right? So we are faced with that in our classrooms on a daily basis. So I would like for you to take a look at this Padlet and add to what types of diversity do we see in our classrooms. And you can access this Padlet through your phone using this QR code. You can click on the Padlet right here, or you can type in this GU. See what I did there? Gave you multiple ways to get there. So a little bit of UDL right away. So go ahead and go to that Padlet and share what types of diversity we see in our classrooms. If you've not used a Padlet before, there's a little plus sign in the lower right-hand corner. And as soon as you click that plus sign, you'll get a blank Post-it note for you to add the different types of diversity we see in our classrooms. So everything from varied interests to their knowledge of how to use technology, the quiet student, attitude towards gender. Oh, Jessica, it's in the slide deck, and it is available through the QR code, this GU, or the Padlet. And I can also put it right in the chat. Oh, thank you, John. Excellent co-pilot. All right. So you can see that we've got a lot going on in our classrooms, and we've all known that. And I don't know that people outside of our classrooms often know what we're dealing with. I think as evidenced by this past year, people who have been students think they know what teachers do, right? Sure. Here's the QR code again. All right. So just to summarize what's on the Padlet, we've got multiliterate students, deaf and hard of hearing students, students that need language supported speech, migrant students, LGBTQ plus students, students with disabilities, etc. So we've got really a whole wide variety of learners in front of us, and how are we going to remove barriers for their learning? And this is just a fun little cartoon that my friend found when we built this with all of the alphabet soup that we have in our job as educators. So, and UDL is another one of those. So we hopefully can turn UDL into something more than an acronym. I know I first heard about it when I went to a UDL training. And before that, my world of information had always been that UDL was part of special ed world. It was not a function of general ed. And I had my eyes opened by Dr. Katie Novak, who is kind of the guru of UDL. So universal design for learning is proactive design of curriculum and instruction to ensure education is accessible no matter of learning style, physical or sensory abilities. And how many of you, like on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being I totally know UDL, 1 being I'm just hearing about it, where do you rank yourself in your knowledge of UDL as like a little pre-assessment? So 5 being most. Okay. So you've heard of it, you know about it. Some of you are just hearing about it. All right. Thank you. That helps me a lot. Wonderful. Appreciate your input. Okay. So there are a variety of websites in here and information that I want you to have so that you know where to go back to if you ever need it. And I mentioned Dr. Katie Novak. She is like the UDL rock star. And there's a book called UDL Now, which was my first take of UDL. And then most recently, she's written a book with Catlin Tucker about blended learning in UDL. And now that we're basically all one-to-one at our schools, blended learning with UDL really goes hand in hand, and that's the way to enhance our schools for sure. Barbara Bray is another guru of UDL. And then the cast.org website, you will find a lot of information there. That's my go-to. In fact, that's where I found this UDL wheel. So I know that some of you like to have something tangible in your hands. So this little wheel in here, if you're one of those, if you like to have something that you can see and feel and hold in your hands, this little printable, and then if you laminate it and use those brads that you may have sitting in a drawer, this little handheld disc here gives you a nice summary of UDL kind of that you can hold in your hands. So I just wanted to give you resources up front so that you know that you'll come back and take a look at them. But when I heard from Dr. Katie Novak, I was just floored with information. I'm like, oh my gosh, we can totally do this. And I know that we go to trainings and we hear all this information and we're like, have to file away the new information with our old information. And what it made me think of was, how can I organize this information for teachers at the time I was an instructional coach for technology to help them understand that we can provide multiple means of access, engagement, and representation or expression for our students. And so I came up with this placemat. And this placemat, is linked in the page notes. And you can always ask me for a copy of it, and I'll send you the Word copy if you need to. I'll give you, I've already put my email address in there because I know this will be too small for you to read right now. And I know that you may want to improve it for your district. But what I did on here, and everything with UDL is color coded, and I'm a color coded chart making kind of girl, so I love this. So the colors, the purple, blue, and green will match what you see on the UDL website as well. So for UDL, we are providing multiple means of representation. So what I did is I wrote down all the points and subpoints of how we can do that for our students. And then in the right-hand column, I wrote all the things we had in my district to help me do that. Like, what tools do I already have access to? So many times we get new information and all these tools and we forget the tools that we already have. And so that was my point in making this chart. My big pie in the sky dream was printing this up like on 11 by 17 paper, folding it in half and keeping it tucked away in my lesson plan book as I got ready to plan while this was still new to me. So how am I going to provide multiple means of representation, action expression, and engagement for my students? And so if I put these all on here on this chart, it's a nice reference tool for me to use to ensure that I'm doing that for my students. And then I started thinking, we have so many bags, so many tools in our bag of tricks as teachers. Like, how do we remember all of them? So around the outside edge, I put the things that I know about lesson building, such as Bloom's taxonomy, Marzano's high yield strategies, depth of knowledge, to remind myself I have to keep those in mind when I'm planning. Across the bottom, I hit all the technology and the future ready skills. We're an AVID district, so I included the Wicker skills, cooperative learning, and formative assessment. Some other things I need to include in my lesson. And then down the right-hand side, always keeping in mind all of the students for whom I need to remove barriers. Oh, I'm glad you like it. So my GATE students, my students with special needs, and my English language learners. So it was like a one-stop shop for planning to remind myself what I needed to do. So it's a overwhelming but good introduction to UDL as far as it's nice to be able to look at this and go like, oh, I totally do that already. So I think sometimes we get overwhelmed with these acronyms and what I need to do, and I've already done them. Like, I already know these things. So hopefully it will validate some practices as well. And again, if you want to customize that for your district, just email me and I will send it to you so you can modify it. What you have on here is a PDF. So, and I made this back when Google Docs wasn't very good at putting in columns. So it's actually a Word document. Oh, good. Yay. I'm glad. Thank you for letting me know that. What I wanted to point out to you before we analyze a lesson is you have UDL in your frameworks and you might not even know it. So something I know after 28 years in education is every time we get a new set of standards, there's a framework. And when this latest set of standards came out, the frameworks came out well after. So we were given all these standards and everyone was losing their mind. Social media was losing their mind with Common Core, you know, everything. So I don't think a lot of you have gotten to look at your frameworks. So what I'd like to give you a moment to do is I pulled the access and equity piece or universal access, anywhere I found universal design for learning mentioned, from all of the frameworks. So you can pick your subject area. I even have the computer science ones here. Those are rather new. And if your area of expertise or that you teach is not here, you can even look at the ISTE standards for educators. When I read those through my ISTE certification, I found that they were written with UDL in mind as well. So I'm going to give you like 2 minutes to click on one of these links and just familiarize yourself with your standards or your subject area and where the access and equity pieces come into play. I don't think we get the opportunity to do that. So I'm going to be quiet for 2 minutes and turn on my timer. Yes, I will share a link to the slides. There you are. And we are on slide 11 for reference, John. Okay. All right. Anyone see anything in there they want to share with us that was an aha moment, or maybe it's the first time you've seen them? Anything that stood out to you? There's actually a lot of really good information in there. And I just don't think, early in my teaching years when we had the frameworks, we got them printed up, and they don't print them up in big books for us anymore. And so I'm not sure if people have had access to these. So I hope this is something that you can maybe come back to and look at and see how it may help give you some ideas for UDL or some support when you go to work with your team members. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at a lesson to see how this lesson may, I'm sorry, how this lesson employs UDL strategies. So this is a lesson created by my friend Jenny, and it's called the Student Press. Oh, interesting, Cindy. And it could also be in my lack of finding the right thing either. So I want to point that out. I'm knowledgeable. I'm not going to say I'm an expert. So if you want to navigate yourself to this lesson that's called Student Press, and there we go. I'm going to toss it in there as well. What I'd like for you to do is take a minute or two to look at this lesson and see where you find evidence of the 3 principles of UDL. So where are you seeing, actually, I'm going to go right here because this shows it a little bit bigger. Multiple means of representation, multiple means of action and expression, and multiple means of engagement. So I'll give you a minute to do that as you go through that document. All righty. So does anyone want to share something they noticed in the lesson that helped remove barriers that were either providing multiple means of representation, action expression, or engagement? What did the teacher do to help remove barriers for learning for her students? You can either pop them in the chat or unmute would be great. So some of the things that I notice is that she linked up vocabulary words right here on the page. So if a student didn't know a word, oh, very good. Thank you, Michael. You noticed the same thing. Great. There's a talk to text option. researching both sides of the argument as they're looking at the different cases down here. I like that they're getting their information from somewhere to read, and they're viewing a graphic. So they're looking at different primary sources. And even here on the NPR, they can read the transcript or listen. They could even listen or read it physically while they're listening. And here's what Cindy was saying, that they were researching both sides of the article. And this was preparing them for that Socratic seminar where they're going to be listening to each other and taking notes. And then they are able to write and record their Flipgrid. So lots of examples of UDL in here. Is there anyone who noticed something that could be done to further remove any barriers in this lesson? Like you're thinking there was a missed opportunity. Providing sentence starters and sentence frames, absolutely. And we're not with the teacher. She could have provided those on the board, but you could provide them right into the document as well, absolutely. Having options for this or that, absolutely. Great ideas. Thank you so much. Providing students with the audio and having language options. Okay, very good. What's nice is with a lot of these being online, if they're using Google Chrome, I believe they can go translate the page in kind of one click, which is awesome. And more collaboration, absolutely. Okay, wonderful. So there's a lot of barriers removed, but we could remove even more with some kind of one-upping this a little bit, like plus oneing this lesson. So, all right. Moving on in the slide deck, what I have here for you so that you know is I've taken now and further ramped up the information on that chart, that first chart I showed you that was very specific to my district. This now would provide you, this was specific to social studies, but it can be, we could modify this to work for anything. I've now hyperlinked in different tools that you can use to help with all three areas or principles of UDL right on this page. And also noticing that at the bottom of the page, what I really like is the UDL goals, so that by providing multiple means of representation, our goal is to create resourceful, knowledgeable learners. By providing multiple means of action and expression, the goal is to create strategic, goal-directed learners, working on those executive functioning skills. And then by providing multiple means of engagement, I am creating purposeful, motivated learners. So that creates to me a nice big picture of why UDL works so well in our classrooms at removing barriers. Now, to remove the barrier of the size of the font on the screen for you, I did blow these up on each of their own 3 screens right here, so that you know what you have. The information is the exact same. I just made it larger on the page. What we're going to do now is you're going to get the opportunity to practice creating a lesson that brings in some UDL. So let me open this up and get you guys all here. And we're going to use probably about 7 to 8 minutes in here with you creating a lesson or taking a lesson you already do that you know you need to do some work on it. And you are going to pick a slide in here. And it looks like there's some people that have been working in here, which is great. I emptied it all out a couple days ago. So that's okay. We can always make more slides. Here's the link to this slide deck. And you're going to pick a slide and pick any topic that you are teaching about. I was a 5th grade teacher for many years. So when I go to teach my Native American units, My goal is that students will gain awareness of the indigenous inhabitants in North America. And so what can I use to provide multiple means of representation? I can use primary source documents, letters, videos, and the textbook. What can I do to provide multiple means of action expression? I can have them record their thoughts and wonderings on Post-it notes, Padlet, or video. And I can have them, and to provide multiple means of engagement, we might be able to take a trip to our local natural history museum or find access online with Google Arts and Culture, something like that. So those are ideas that I can start putting in there. So grab a slide, give us the title of your lesson, a brief summary of the gist of your lesson, and then how might you remove some barriers? What might you do to bring this to life for your students in the 3 principal areas of UDL? So I'll let you get in that document and give you about 7 minutes to work in there. And I'll leave this on the screen so that it might be helpful. Are there any questions about what we're doing? Kind of play with UDL. Okay. And if questions come up while you're working on this, just let me know. All right, let's see how this is going. Getting some work in there. Ooh, roller coaster velocity. That sounds awesome. Does anyone want to share a lesson that they've come up with, or even if you've figured out one thing you want to add to your lesson to remove some barriers? For parts of speech to use Flipgrid videos, wonderful. Flipgrid was used, I think, a lot last year, and I think they've added so much to it to make it really rich for kids, especially with our kids who don't want to necessarily show their face on the screen. They can put, they don't have to be on the screen. They can write on their screen and share their screen, which is also a nice addition to that as well. For especially, I noticed that my sixth graders towards the second half of the year were like, we don't want to be on camera anymore. We're done with that. So they started getting embarrassed with things. So wonderful. Okay. So you will have access to all of these ideas on here. Someone asked me, what do you mean by, on my slide in here, what do you mean by thin slides and thick slides and these 8 parts for primary sources and such? So this is another love of mine called Edu Protocols. And there's 3 books available now, and later this year there'll be a 4th book authored by myself. These are educational lesson frames that help you ensure that you are teaching students in really meaningful ways that allow for their creativity and critical thinking all the time, really ramping up that rigor. So that's a totally separate thing that I do, but it does fall right into UDL. So if those funny names of things intrigue you, just connect with me, send me an email, and I'll be happy to explain that as well. There's also some links on here that would help you understand that. But we are coming up to the end of our time. And so what I'd like for you to do is to think about kind of a reflection piece of what you have learned. And I gave you some sentence frames here, and you have your choice of going on Flipgrid, going on Padlet or Jamboard, or even using a Post-it note if you'd like to go old school, and fill in. I gave you 2 sentences here. You could either fill in, I have learned that blank is an important part of universal design for learning, or I can remove barriers for student success by. And so kind of round out our learning with one of those sentence frames. And I would never give my students all 3 or all 4 of these options, because I don't want to go check all 4 places. But for you, I'm trying to model some different ways that you can bring closure to a lesson. So I'm going to go look at this Padlet. That seems to be the most popular place where people go. And we'll see if we have anything on there. So that's from the last time I did this, but we'll see if we get some more hits on there, or the Jamboard. Jamboard was a lifesaver during virtual teaching, I felt. Let's see. Looks like we've got a couple people. Great. Removing barriers by providing options. Very good. Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you for adding to that. I can remove barriers for students by continuing to learn about tools and resources that will foster a UDL classroom. Ooh, I like how that included yourself in there, and what you're doing to be that lifelong learner. Excellent, thank you. So just some quick wins that I put on here for you. These are just some quick things I found that you could take and modify probably in about 5 to 10 minutes and complete a lesson. that would have UDL components in it so that the barriers are removed and my students can be successful in a couple of quick, easy steps. And then my last page just has some curated resources for some just great people and great items out there that I think everyone should know about. So especially these hyperdocs really are good at helping remove barriers and providing choices for our students. So we just have a couple minutes left, and just want to thank you for coming and see if you have any other questions that you would like me to address, or any resources I can give you.
Sorry, can you repost the QR code for this?
Yes. So the QR code is just taking you to the Padlet. Do you want the link to the whole thing?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Let me get you that. There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I really think that UDL is going to become that buzzword that we don't really like to have in education, because we know it's like, oh, another buzzword. But I think that with looking at how our students have learned the past year and a half, we're going to have, and I don't like learning loss at all. I really like that. Gives me I have a physical response to the word learning loss, because I think our kids learned a lot. They may have learned differently, and they may have learned different content and different information, but they learned a lot this past year and a half. And so we're going to have to do a really good job of assessing what our kids know when they come in that door, and building up their skills to get them where we need them to be. And I think that is possible by removing those barriers for learning, and building up those repetitions and thinking skills so that they get back into the routines that we need them to be good students. And I think that works for pre-K all the way through 12th grade. And I also think that if we use that term learning loss with their kids, they're going to adopt that as their mantra, like, oh, I have learning loss for a year and a half. I have learning loss. So that's why I can't do this. And I don't think we really want to encourage that. So I want to look at the skills they have and move them forward, and not look at it as that deficit mindset. I want to look at it as this strengths-based mindset of, this is what they do know, so how can I build on that? And so if you've got your group of third graders and they don't have all their addition and subtraction facts, and it's going to put a barrier in there for learning multiplication, then let's go beef up that addition and subtraction really quick with some good resources and get them knowing that, and move them on to where we need them to be. We don't have to belabor this. It can happen. And I think that we have a lot of resources now, especially with the technology, that I can provide. If I'm using Newsela to get 3 different levels of reading to meet the needs of the Lexiles of my students, boom, 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 I've got the 3 links right in there. Okay, yellow group, go to that link, blue group, go to that link, whatever it may be. And it doesn't have to be difficult to create all these opportunities for our students to learn and show what they know. So anyway, that's my little thing. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful day. I'm again available we have 10 more minutes. I was thinking we ended at 1:50, but we end at 2. So we have 10 minutes if you need to want to work through anything. Otherwise, you can have yourself a little break before the next session. But I'm happy to stay. Thank you so much.